I'll transition.
All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of The Hail Call. I'm joined tonight with Teddy, Matt, and Corey. We're just finishing up the first round of the online live duck contest. So thank you to everybody who has entered. We're going to be scoring those this week. And then, Teddy, when was the next day that the second rounds we're going to have an announcement for who made the cuts?
Shit, you're putting me on the spot right away. It's next week we're going to make an announcement.
I think by next Tuesday, right? Because we're going to announce who made the cut on the podcast.
This week we're recording. It'll be released on Thursday. So the judges are scoring round one from now until next Tuesday, and then we will record the
the 10th. First round cuts will be made on the 10th.
Yeah.
With second round routines due on the 13th.
Yep. So for those of you that are tuning
in handy.
That's right. About time. So for those of you that are entered.
Yes, Corey, there's a stopwatch on the screen. Anyway, everybody.
I listened to it last week. That's why I said that.
Yeah, it freaked me out. I'm not going to lie.
I was like, oh, God, here we go again.
Go, Mike.
So for those of you that are entered in that contest, thank you for participating. We're looking forward to seeing how this all shakes out. Now, we had a pretty interesting topic that we're going to be starting kind of a new series or segment of the podcast that actually got a lot of traction, which was kind of cool. And that is we're kind of doing a forum flashback from back in the day. I think, Matt, that was the technical term we used, correct?
Yes, brought to you by Flashback Decoys.
By Flashback Decoys. Hell yeah, brother. And so basically we're going back through the old refuge forum, which is probably one of the biggest forums out there pertaining to waterfowl hunting and all things in general for outdoorsmen. And we're finding some topics from, it goes all the way back. I've seen some as far back as 2004. So we're talking over 20 years ago. And obviously the sport has changed quite a bit between now and then. So we're going to kind of dig back up some interesting topics. And the forum is still going today. So if those of you who are kind of getting sick of the old Facebook groups and stuff like that, the Refuge Forum is still open and still being used every day by lots and lots of people. So we have a couple topics here. Teddy, what's the first topic that we're going to talk about?
Well, I mean, should we give Corey a chance to weigh in on last week's topic, or do you just want to move forward and talk about this one, which is going to be a pretty good one?
Yeah, Corey, do you have anything to add from last week's episode?
In regards to the forums?
Yeah, I know you kind of sent me a message, and I mean, I know you were super active on them back in the day.
Knockers.
Yeah,
Flop Knockers is one of them you guys didn't bring. I mean, that's obviously not as big as the Refuge forums, but I mean, I met a lot of people that I still talk to and hunt with on the Kansas page of Flock Knockers, because they all have the states people can talk about, whatever. And so, but yeah, that was the way to communicate. And I traded a shit ton of duck and goose calls on those pages. And back then, people were still being bullies on the internet and making fun of people.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it wouldn't be the internet without that,
Teddy.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Silky Johnson.
Easy. All right. Where's my hat when I need it?
Yeah. But no, Flock Knockers is cool.
So what are your thoughts on the age of waterfowlers and waterfowlers aging out? Because a lot of people were we got two comments, but a couple of them disagreed with our take that saying that, waterfowlers are just aging out of the sport.
Aging out?
Yeah, considering that the population of the United States and the baby boomers are kind of moving out of waterfowling and becoming into those 60s, 70s, and 80-year-old, people. Do you think they're aging out? Because your average age of a waterfowler right now is, what did I say last week? It was
in the 40s.
Yeah, upper 40s, low 50s.
And I think we all, the three of us, I think guessed sub 30.
Yeah, we guessed around that 21, 29 age.
Is kind of that popular time. And I kind of said, a lot of the older guys that I know, now this I think maybe is where it ruffled some feathers. We're certainly not saying that there aren't guys that are out there in their 50s and 60s or older that are still avid waterfowl hunters.
Oh, yeah. My dad's
not at all.
66, and he goes 3-4 days a week and push poles his layout boat. And
yeah. I mean, there's certainly still people that are out there doing it.
Correct.
I just looking in like my personal life and the people that I know, I just don't know that many people that I used to hunt with, like my buddies' dads. That's my prime example. Like I'm the only person in my family that waterfowl hunts. So I have to look at all of my buddies and their dads were all the people that kind of mentored me in my waterfowl journey, right? And a lot of those guys, like the only time they're really getting out is like maybe opening day. You know, they're not going out scouting. They're not, you know, just the drive isn't really there. So
I mean, yeah, I would say, I mean, there's still a decent amount of, you know, 50 to 60-year-olds that still, or even 70-year-olds that still waterfowl hunt, but I would probably assume that most of them now are involved with like a hunting club, to where it's just like, you know, like there's a lot of duck clubs in my area, and I would say the average age of a member would probably be between 55 to 65 years old. They get up, they go out of their bedroom, eat, go to a blind. They don't have to worry about messing with where do I go, like how do I get to that spot.
They have the money to be in a club.
Yeah. Or I mean, they just don't have the money to be in it. But yeah, I mean, I would say there's still, I mean, I come across, you know, a handful a year that are probably older than my dad, where I hunt. But I would say predominantly is, I mean, probably my age and older is where I see like the hunters. I mean, we do have a lot of, you know, 18 to 25-year-olds that probably hunt, but I don't see a whole lot of that age where
So you're saying the average age, and I could agree with that too. Your younger guys are not typically going on outfitted hunts; they're doing it themselves.
No, so
a lot of your hunters are people who are in their career jobs.
Yeah,
and
I hardly ever get a whole crew of
25-year-olds.
No,
probably not.
Yeah, your average income. The average income probably has something to do with that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that, or whatever. But I mean, 45 to 65-year-old men, and even some females, you know, that come out and hunt. But I mean, that's the predominant age that I see across the board.
Okay.
I think that we were saying that younger demographic was based on who's making like the most noise. I think that's really why we said that.
Well, we need the younger generation to make a lot of noise to continue with this hunting involvement.
Right. Right.
I think, and I would say probably for myself, that's where I'm seeing it. I mean, you look at it the other way. Your older guys are not on Facebook groups blasting everybody. They might be on there, but they're not. You just don't see them. They're not chirping. You know, they're the guys that are posting a couple hunts, and unfortunately, some of them are just like, you know, hey, they're maybe part of a club. They go out, they shoot a handful of birds. They're happy. That's what they're just happy to be out and doing it. They're not out there posting, this is me grinding every day, you know, getting webfoot high fives and doing all that.
Don't start. Yeah. I mean, it's an expensive ass sport, especially for people that are trying to get involved with it now, because like I feel the waterfowl hunting, you need way more gear than any other type of hunting. And it's expensive. Like, you know, I like to see the average age of a deer hunter because, you know, I mean, I'm around deer hunting and, you know, obviously I don't deer hunt, but like, you know, obviously you need permission or a lease, a couple of ladder stands and a bow. Okay. So, I mean, it's not significant like waders, guns, shells, calls, decoys, electronics, boats, whatever. I mean, motorized decoys. And even people go to the far of, you know, of getting boats. I mean, it's not cheap. None of it's cheap. I mean, don't get me wrong. No hunting is cheap.
Right.
But I feel waterfowl hunting is the most expensive one out of all the hunting types. Now,
there's no end. I think there's no end to it, right?
No, because
you look at decoys, prime example.
If there was an end to it, these companies wouldn't still be going.
Yeah, there's no end to how many decoys you can have.
Correct.
A guy's going to have a full silhouette honker spread. He's going to have a full floater honker spread. He's going to have a full body spread. Now we look at ducks. We have field ducks. We have water ducks. We have, like you said, your boats. With bow hunting and deer hunting, you can still spend a lot of money on it, but there's kind of a cap, right?
Right.
Like you can buy the best bow, you can buy a couple of the best guns, you can buy the best tree stands. Yeah, I mean the best tree stands are $500-600 for just a stand. I have $1,200 wrapped up on my back when I walk into the woods every day.
Geez, big spender. All right.
But that's the most expensive stuff you can get.
Well, Elon over here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, but with honey, like,
yeah,
oh, okay,
you
want to spend more? Throw another dozen duck decoys on there. Throw another dozen Dave Smith Mallards on there.
Right. What you were saying though, Mike, like you got $1,200 in deer hunting, right? You're in waterfowl hunting, you got $1,200 in just your gun. And that's not your ammo.
Correct.
Your decoys.
That's not weight. I mean, the average waiter now is $700 to $1,200 just for waiters now. I mean,
I wish I would have taken advantage of so many of those Max Prairie Wings sales that they would have with their breathable waders and stuff like that. You could buy 6 pairs, you'd probably still be wearing them.
Or shit, just like what Rogers used to do with their stuff. But yeah, I mean, back to the age. I mean, yeah, it's tough for guys nowadays to want to get involved in it. And, they're cutting their teeth and probably getting hand-me-down shit or buying used stuff, which is fine. But, I mean, if people want to be all in it, it's an expensive-ass deal for kids
Trailers
18 to 25.
So you brought up the average age of the deer hunter, and this is coming from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They say that the average age of the waterfowl hunter is now, again, within a few years of standard deviation, but you're looking at 47 and a half years old. So it's in that like not 18 to 35 or 18 to 34, 35 to 45, 45. So it's in that like third age bracket. Whereas the deer hunter average age is apparently the trend is going down to a younger age. And right now the average age is like 30 or 42, with it being 35 to 44 being your most populated age bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they're saying it went down compared to 5 years ago, whereas 5 years ago it was around 60 for your average age of a deer.
That, and I mean, there's not a lot of, I mean, like I said, once again, I don't deer hunt, but there's not a lot of wear and tear on your bodies for a deer hunter compared to a waterfowl hunter, especially if you're a public land guy or a big lake guy with a boat and shit like that. I mean, it takes a toll on my dad just a one day of hunting with his layout boat. Mm-hmm. He's 66, 67. So, I mean, to walk to a stand, to climb up it, I mean, the safety involved with that. But outside of that, no offense to deer hunters, you're just sitting there hoping for that thing to walk by.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, the most work in deer hunting is trying to drag the thing out.
Yeah. Or dump your corn bags.
Yeah.
Where legal. Asterisk, where legal.
Your corn bags out.
Yeah. No, I mean,
do you want to transition to tonight's topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Move.
So we've got RNT. So this one's from the Duck and Goose Calling Forum back in November 16th of 2012. And I'll just read to you word for word what it says. What's your opinion on RNT dominating the contest circuit for the most part? Is it bad for the sport of competitive duck calling? Do new or other call makers care as much about titles? I don't think RNT offers as much benefit of blowing their call from the next competitor, not making accusations, just curious what everyone's thoughts. So what are your thoughts? I mean, this was from 2012, so this was like the height of RNT versus Echo, maybe? I don't know.
I was just going to say, I feel like that was late. Like if you would have went like early to mid 2000s, wasn't that kind of the heyday of
you got to think, rivalry? I mean,
mid to late 2000s?
05, 06, 07 was RNT with John, Jim, and Jody. I feel like the bulk majority, I would say from 04 to 12, 15. Yeah. Like it was RNT. Obviously a lot of competitors slowly thinned out over the years, especially after Butch's passing.
Yeah.
John obviously won 3, Jimbo won 1. John got champions. There's been a lot of unbelievable duck callers that have won the worlds with an RNT, even way back when. But, back then, I mean, even when I was competing with a, MVP, I mean, you go to the shop and after the contest was over, there'd be a big party, especially if, you know, an RNT guy won. There'd be Nat Gear vest for a while, and then he transitioned to black vest, and then Sika came in, and it was collars vest, and shit. You know, there's photos that my dad still has of us, you know, 04 or 05, 06, 07 of 50 something collars blowing an MVP
for Rich and Tone. Yeah.
For Rich and Tone, blowing an MVP. And then like the next crew would be Echo, and they'd probably be, you know, 20, 25, 30. I mean, not 25 or 30, but like 15 to 20 callers in there. And you may have, you know, a couple guys blowing a Betts or, you know, a Foul Language or a Gaston.
Maybe a Buck Gardner in there.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, hell, 1 year, I mean, 07, like 3 or 4 guys took top 10 blowing bucks. But RNT, I mean, for that guy to make that comment in 12, yeah, RNT was the king shit of Main Street Worlds. Now, don't get me wrong, Rick has a tremendous amount of world championships, you know, over the years, especially with, you know, St. John and Phil. I mean, obviously, Jonathan Morton, he's come close a shit ton of times. But with Brad Allen winning, you know,
Tyler Merritt.
Tyler Merritt was, I mean, and still, in my opinion, one of the best to obviously never win it. But yeah, I mean, he had a substantial amount of good callers. But yeah, I mean, everyone and anyone for the longest time was blowing an MVP. And I feel like just because John did more, in my opinion, as far as like, here's vest, here's a call, and you know, Butch was there, and Butch was all about it everywhere he went. Like, he'd tune your calls. If you needed something, he'd hand cut it or whatever. I mean, he did a lot for my brother and, you know, myself, and including like Mike and all these other guys that have, you know, competed. But I feel like once Butch passed away, the transition of RNT kind of filtered out. And now there was 3 this year.
Very
Daniel,
few.
Will. I think it might have just been Daniel and Will.
Yeah, and I think when I was there 2 years ago, certainly less than 10 of us.
And now there's fucking 65 RMs?
A lot. A lot.
And there's 7 Echoes. So, I mean, you know, Echo really never, I would say,
a handful of refuge.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Adam had, Adam had a bunch. But once the passing of Butch happened, you know, the carrying of the competing thinned out on a lot of callers that blew an RNT. And then some of them left and went other directions.
Well, a lot of people were very loyal to Butch.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and
Butch was the king.
Not that John ever.
Oh no, I'm not
necessarily did anything to hurt anybody, but just John's personality and how he is. He's just a lot more laid back. Like, he kind of removes himself from some of that a little bit too.
Correct.
Butch was, I mean, that was his thing. You know,
Butch was all in. I mean, it was Butch
super active. I mean, traveling everywhere. I mean, Butch would be up at Presley's. He'd be here. He'd be there. You know, going all over.
And Rick was the same way. I mean, that white Suburban would show up, and I mean, St. John and Phil and Brashears and Tyler Merritt and Morton, they'd all get out, and Rick would show up, and he'd be there, you know, 2 or 3 days and judged a lot of shit as well. And so, I mean, both him and Butch, you know, in my opinion, led the way for a lot of callers over the years that have had unbelievable success.
And I think ultimately, you know, the whole like rivalry, right? Like, those are the 2 biggest duck calls of their time.
At that time, it was, I mean,
and probably still today, to be honest.
Everywhere you went, there'd be 50 to 60 guys in those qualifiers, and there'd be 2 RNT judges, 2 Echo judges, and one oddball, like a Betts,
or one oddball,
or an Elmore, or whatever, you know, just an oddball, because of the fact, like, I mean, there'd be piston matches. If there was 3 Echo guys judging the contest, Butch would raise hell over the phone, because he knew damn good and well one of them Echo guys were going to win. Just like with Rich and Tone. I mean, it was always a piston match back then, because obviously it was a lot more serious of a contest than it is now. Now, I mean, like I said, there's 12, 13 guys in a regional, and there's 7 different call companies in the bullpen.
So, do you think that rivalry between those two call companies? I mean, again, I don't really Main Street, but do you think that rivalry helped feed the sport and was good for the growth of the sport, or was it detrimental to the sport?
No, I just feel like COVID ruined the whole sport itself.
That could be true. Yeah.
It was never. I mean, before COVID, there was still 25 to 35 callers. There'd be 40 in an open or whatever at Rogers. Guys were still blowing because they wanted to blow, but then when COVID hit, everything just went to shit, and then contests were dropping. Burlington, I mean, Rogers and Burlington are two of the top 5 biggest contests of the year, and you take them away and people just start losing desire of paying attention to the contest calling.
For sure.
Now, with the contest calling, trying to make a scene coming back and, doing the online shit, which online stuff is fine for people that don't have the funds to travel, as much as we do, but it's still not what it was. And to get sponsors and to get these contests back up, I mean, it's tough. I mean, yeah, Kansas City, we're having, Bobby Hayes is having them, right down the road from my house, but it's not like what it was. I mean, once people stopped caring, once COVID hit and they were using it as an excuse to never have a contest again, that's just it ruined a lot of it, in my opinion, not because of the rival between RNT and Echo. That, paved the way for a lot of guys to come up to compete, was whether they were going to blow, Rick's call or Butch's call. And now a lot of guys, some of them still compete for Echo. And obviously Daniel and Will are the 2 longest running RNT callers, and they're unbelievable. And everyone else kind of just went about their own way in different, call companies, just because there was just something better,
Do you think that when contest calling meant more for call sales, like if your call was winning, if you won a world championship with that call, you could use that, you could advertise it, you could market it in a time before social media, like 2012, social media was still going on, but it isn't quite even to the extent of what it is today by any means. But back in those early 2000s and mid 2000s, do you think that this rivalry and the pissing match between the two, do you think that had a lot to do with, well, your call won, now you get to advertise that you won that contest, you are able to drive more sales to your company because you're winning. You won a world championship this year. That means you can market that your call was used to win a world championship. Now I get to sell more calls this year. Where if if Rich and Tone's winning more, are they selling more duck calls because they're able to market that? What are your guys' thoughts on that? Is that not a thing, do you think? Because back in the day, contests used to mean a lot. If you walked up to a booth and they were like, yeah, our calls have won tons of opens and regionals and some world championships. And I still think a little bit of that is legitimate today. I mean, if you're building a call and you can win a world championship on it, obviously there's some validity to what you have going on.
I'm not a world championship caller, but I mean, I've sold a shit ton of layers calls, blowing a layers hybrid, winning with them.
Absolutely.
I mean, Crow and Joe have done. I mean, Joe and Crow have done an exceptional job, unbelievable job, making it one of the largest selling duck calls right now on fucking social media. But when I first started going to all these contests, around here in the Midwest and winning, a lot of them every year, more and more people had layers duck calls every contest I went to. And
absolutely.
But as far as like that's a totally different style of contest winning, obviously. But an MVP or an Echo Boss, I wish guys like Brent Easley or even my brother being one of the youngest to ever win it, before social media was a thing. I mean, he probably could have done a lot after winning the Worlds at his age, especially with those guys that were coming up under him or his age included, that he could have marketed and promoted himself to where he could have made some money. Brent Easley the same way. And so, but I feel like as far as those two names, since they've been around forever, I don't think they sold more after winning a Worlds. I mean, people were still going to buy a short barrel or a daisy cutter or even original before all that was, made, just because of the name, or just like the timbers or the tall timbers or whatever, Rick was making the XLTs, because they would watch their videos and they would hear those guys blow them in the woods and hear, Tyler Merritt on them. Me personally, as far as a main street style contest, I don't think their call sales went up as much as it, like as far as like selling Lair's duck calls after, meat hunting style.
Sure.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. It can't.
No, it's not. I'm not saying they're going to go down. I mean, you read Max Prairie Wings the next year, they're like, the last 3 world, championship calls, MVP performance, calls the last 3 years. And so, I mean, yeah, they advertise it to where they, produce. But
if you removed contest calling from all the call makers in general, do you think that Rich and Tone would still be the number 1 selling duck call on the market?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, look at how they got their start, though.
They started with a guide service,
but it's deeply rooted.
Oh yeah,
in contest.
Well, I mean, with Butch starting it, but obviously, like the DVD or the VHS when it first came out, like they, came out with their VHS and people bought it. But I don't feel like.
I think the World Championships validate their brand.
Yes, like, that's a good way to put that.
I mean, that's kind of like they create a brand image around an Echo or an RNT or, JJ Lairs or whatever duck call, Stumps or whatever, if you put a world title in the call, then, it kind of validates you as a call maker more and your brand image. It might not necessarily translate to direct sales in that specific model, or maybe it will in that specific model, but I think overall down the line, it's definitely going to help your brand image for sure.
And you look at like goose calls. All your best goose callers have all started from people that have won world championships.
Oh yeah,
right. You look at your grounds,
I've made names
foils,
because
your bay countries, your molt gears. Like I mean, all of them have just about all of them come from the person who has started it being a contest caller.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, a prime example that kind of showed me when I went out to Oregon the first year, I won like every single contest out there. And standing in line for the barbecue, like Cory, you were out there, Crow was out there, and we were standing in line for that barbecue, and these 2 guys in front of us, I just won like every contest that day. And the guy's like, yeah, did you watch the contest at all? Yeah, I did. Yeah, how did it go? Yeah, some guy from Minnesota won. Oh, really? Minnesota, huh? Yeah. What kind of call was he using? Oh, I think it was a molt gear. Oh, never heard of it. Oh, yeah, so what are you doing later tomorrow? It was like they just, so you go out there, you win a contest, you come back. We never sold 1 call to anybody from Oregon. Like, we're just out of the bubble. Well, I mean, I mean, like.
Now he sells them fucking everywhere, but yeah.
Right. But I mean, you still have like your flyway specifics, right? You look at Teddy, you guys probably see it. You guys probably sell the vast majority of your calls on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And a few in the Midwest and probably very few on the West Coast. Where Bill Saunders and Pacific are probably selling a shitload on the West Coast.
Yeah.
A bunch in the Midwest.
I feel Bill sells an ass loads in Texas too. Oklahoma and Texas, Bill probably sells quite a few as well.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's interesting. Unfortunately, there isn't really that. I agree with you, Cory. I think after Butch died and after COVID hit, for sure, that like rivalry between call companies, I don't feel like is really there.
No, I still
think you have that huge push for having the title behind you, like Teddy was saying, for having that validity behind your brand.
Right.
Where there's probably a reason why there's 60 RM calls up there.
Right.
Stump
I mean, my
World
argument
Championships,
is,
and he makes a good duck call. And obviously, like, if you have a lot of people, you're putting out a good call, and people are using it on that stage, it kind of validates your brand, right? If you didn't have a good call, you wouldn't have 60 people using it.
Let's call it 15 different call makers out there have world titles, that are current today. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you go on to Call Nuts, and how many call makers are there? Like tens of thousands. Do you think any one of them would want a world title?
The new one just started just now. Like literally just now.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
One guy has a lathe in his garage that he turned a straight barrel out of and stuffed an echo insert in it.
Yeah, there's probably been 4 brands started.
God, I want to know how much Rick Dunn makes off those inserts.
I think enough to pay everybody's salary.
I want to know what, like, even especially back in the day, because every booth that you went to,
at
whether
Burlington.
It was Galleons or Burlington or Peoria or Game Fair, it didn't matter. Rick Dunn's polycarb insert was in everyone's barrel.
Yeah, I would say that is the top selling duck call of all time.
It has to be. Rick has killed it with that insert.
Yeah,
and they're good.
It's a good insert.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Diamondwood polycarb insert echo call that hung on the rack. And I think you could back then. I think you could get it for like $45.
Mm-hmm.
And that
the
thing
Diamondwood,
the Diamondwood, and that thing was damn good.
Yeah, I had one of the clear barrel with a green insert double reed that I think I picked up at Walmart, and that thing was a good call.
Yeah.
Like the first hunt I took it on, we shot a 6-man limit of mallards, and I was like, "Well, this is the best duck call ever made." Like, I was
we just did this,
but like it's, gosh, so much has changed. And then you look at.
Do you think there's a little rivalry today with, Stumps call versus?
I don't think. I think it's just. I don't think it's a rivalry. I think it's just more like.
An ass beating.
I can't stand that son of a bitch. I don't like that guy, and I think it's just kind of like that now.
Yeah, you wouldn't be involved in any of that, would you, Corey?
No, I don't Main Street call. I don't Main Street.
I'm not talking about Main Street calling. I'm talking about duck calling in general.
No,
I mean, I still think, I would say with goose calls, I don't see it as much.
No, not like it used to be.
Not like it used to be. I do know that like Hunter, which it's what he knows, right?
Yeah.
He grew up with Tim and like foils. Like Tim had a lot of that fire behind him to have the number one call. And I think that's still there today. And nobody's gonna catch however many contests grounds have won. Grounds are the rich and tone of the goose call industry.
Right.
But I still think there's some fire with that. But, you look at back in the heyday, you look at the calling teams that you used to have.
Oh.
The first time I ever saw you, Corey, you were wearing a Nat Gear RNT shirt at the Burlington contest and I had a black one of the new black button-ups. And I go walking by, and you're standing there like, who the hell is this kid? He's blowing a goose call, a rich and tone goose call. And I was like, I don't know who this asshole is. Like, I'm just here to try to blow in a contest. Like, my second year calling. Yeah. But, you just don't have
calling teams back then. I mean, that
had
was cutthroat.
Shirt,
the goose calling jerseys. The goose calling stuff was cutthroat back then. Like the teams. It was. It was more of them. Had Big Sean and Mark Carey and all those guys, and then Bolin, Grinder, and Jared Wilson, and even Cole was a kid. But between them, and then Zink had his crew, and Tim had their crew. You go to Peoria and Burlington and Kansas City. It was
it's like
nuts.
Showing up for a WWE fight.
It was nuts. They all sat away from each other in the bullpens and. It was, duck calling was the same way. Back then, everyone tried to get along, but there was a separation involved. They were like, hey, we're not here to make friends. We're here to, try to win this damn thing, and then we can drink afterwards. But I didn't have any problems with any of the Echo guys. When Rusty was blowing and Tyler and Morton and Brashears and, I remember when Phil first started. I mean, he showed up. I was like, who in the fuck is this big bastard? He started talking, and I'm like, where are you from? And he's like, I'm from Louisiana. And then now look at Phil. I mean, he's 2-time world champion.
Mm-hmm.
He is too, isn't he? Yeah, he's won twice.
He's
won twice, only once.
I think he's won twice.
I'm not for certain on that. I'm
for
not
sure
for certain on that.
I know he's taken second a few times.
Yeah, I mean, those rivalries, goose calling versus duck calling, it's...
Did you guys have that on the East Coast, Eddie?
I mean, yes and no. We just didn't have as many Midwest callers out there.
Yeah.
No, but did you guys have your Bay Country versus Sean Mann or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean,
I can imagine back in the day.
Bobby Kenton, but it wasn't really necessarily a rivalry. We were happy with, for anybody who won, but did we want to beat Bobby Kenton because he was the only Sean Mann caller in the contest? Sure. And then you had to worry about Bonce and Jacob winning both duck and goose at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, it's right, because Stanley had his call company out there.
Walls blew grounds for a hot minute and then switched over to Zinc, and then he kind of took off, and it was
Wasn't Stanley's call called the Deceiver?
That's his duck call. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
What was his goose call called?
I couldn't tell you. It's a goofy looking goose call.
Because didn't it have the 2 mouthpieces on each end and it kind of waved in the middle?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. I've got one in my call cabinet. But it
was... Stanley's probably most predominant killer I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
Obviously the whole family is. But
for a very long time, he was one of the winningest callers, across the board too. Back when calling ducks you could look at all those statistics.
Stanley used to wear
contests.
Yeah, Stanley used to wear the Shadowgrass Avery fleece quarter zip pullover, and he had all the shit sewn in on the back of what he won.
I've seen that pullover.
Current year. Remember that one?
Yeah. I've seen it a few times.
He would wear it to Worlds.
Yep.
He's a big man, too.
Dude, he's a crazy dude. I really like Alan Stanley.
And I haven't seen him in probably 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's really knowledgeable. That's for sure.
The whole family's a bunch of killers.
I went over to his house in Delaware to get Main Street calling pointers, and I don't know, the first 15 seconds I was blowing a feed call. He was told me to blow a feed call, and I was doing the rolling feed call, that shit. Yeah. And he was like, knock that shit off. And I was like, whoa, I'm 18 years old. I don't know this guy for nothing. But you walk into his kitchen, and his entire house is lined with nothing but beards all around the top of his house. Just turkey beards.
In the kitchen?
In the kitchen, yeah. It only stopped for cabinets. That's the only time it stopped. It was badass. Yeah. Dude, yeah. Jacob and Bonce are just good people too.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, there was a few Sean Mann had a little call-in team. It was Bobby Kenton, Scott Christopher, John Leaguer, and then Josh Newweiler. But I was after Newweiler.
I was after, yeah.
Yeah. So it was I didn't really compete against Josh too often outside of when he first did the live.
Because when Newweiler started, Popo and McGowan were already done, right?
No, Josh dominated. McGowan was done, but Popo was kind of still coming up.
That's right.
Josh won his 3 world titles, and then Popo won his 2.
I'm damn.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, but it's interesting. I just kind of look at that contest because then you saw the picture that Stump posted on Instagram where it was I don't know, there's 65 people in the contest and 40 of them are blowing Stump's call.
Mm-hmm.
It's not much of a rivalry nowadays. It was interesting for sure.
Teddy, you had another topic that you kind of hinted at last week. Why don't you read what our next topic is?
All right, so this one, I don't necessarily know if it's controversial, but we are probably going to disagree with it. And I don't know exactly when it was published because I think it was published November 15th of 2024, at least by Field and Stream it was. Could be older than that, it might be. But there was an article that came out on the 15th of November that listed and I quote, the best waterfowl hunters of all time. All right? And these
probably
25 names.
Probably need to put a disclaimer, though, right? Like,
that this is not our list.
Well, for one, this is not our list. For two, from the little bit, now I've only heard of one name that's even on this list, and I didn't know who it was. But they were from, like, we're probably we're not in the age group to probably really have any idea of who a lot of these people are. Because this, when we say all time, you're talking way back, like
1800s, going back to like the market gunning days.
So, hand up over here, not a historian. So I'm not going to know, even though I know a lot of things about waterfowl hunting, I'm probably not going to know who a lot of these people are, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So this is where, for those of you that are listening that are older than us, don't hold this against us that we don't know who some of these people are, because to be honest, a lot of them were probably passed away by the time, or close to it, by the time that we were even getting involved in it, right?
I want to know what they based this off of, like.
So that's
kill death ratio.
So every waterfowler highlighted below either influenced the way we hunt or had an impact on waterfowl and wetlands conservation.
Okay.
Well, Latchoff's name's got to be on there, or Pat Pitt.
Maybe. So I'll go from 25 to 1. Or do you want to go 1 to 25?
I would go 25 to 1.
Okay.
But this is in a ranked order.
People off that I would think.
Because I asked you that, Teddy. Is this just a list of 25 people? They have it ranked.
From 1 to 25.
Like, this is the most influential person.
So the 25th best waterfowl hunter of all time is Tony Vandemore.
I think he should be on the list.
Yeah, but by today's standard, like, if you put him at the bottom, like, you're gonna ruffle a lot of feathers, probably.
Okay.
And I'll say it. We'll just do this quick. We'll skip over some of these. And Tony Vandemore is a relevant name in today's day and age, right? We're like, the four of us are familiar with who he is. You look at how long Tony's been doing it back in the day. Like, I think the first time I ever saw anything from Tony was on the old Zinc videos, predominantly snow goose hunting, him and Tyson Keller. So you're talking like mid to late 2000s. So you're already into like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, as far as like current history, right? About 20 years ago, probably a few more. No offense to Tony, if you listen to this podcast, you're probably too busy for it. But anyways, like, you know what I mean? Like, whenever he got his start, like, he's probably one of the youngest people listed on here, and Tony's probably in his 40s, I would guess.
Tony?
Right? Yeah.
He's got to be in his low 50s.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I'm not sure.
Tony, we'd love a comment if you're listening.
Yeah. Let us know, Tony. I think he should be on there. Like, he's done a lot for.
Here's my predictions on who's on here. Nash Buckingham's got to be on there. Pat Pitt, I would assume he might be on there. Ding Darling, who did the federal duck stamp, he has to be on there.
It's a name I didn't
know. Ground.
Name.
I would
let him read the list, Corey.
Huh?
Let him read the list.
We'll go through, because I'm sure there'll be some names where we're like, what?
Yeah.
If Bobby Guy's on there, we're never airing another episode.
We'll end
the episode
on this
I'm just unplugging my computer.
I'm unplugging this like Eli did on TK and Mike.
Go ahead.
Right,
Ted.
so
in Tony
order,
Vandemore in 25.
Yeah, just go in order, and then we'll talk about whoever.
All right, in order: 25, Tony Vandemore; 24, Tim Grounds; 23, and I'll give you a little bit of background in case you don't recognize the name. Wade Bourne, DU TV host for 10 years.
Yep.
Then Phil Robertson at 22.
What?
22. Then above him at 21 is Ron Latshaw.
Ron Latshaw. Yeah, Final Approach.
Final Approach invented the layout blind.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Then Terry Denman invented the spinning wing decoy.
Yes.
Then
I agree with these.
Then Jim Kripe, who has been given credit for inventing the silhouette decoy, which is that's a bold statement. Then I'm sorry, not inventing the silhouette decoy, but the first person to put printed photographs on the silhouette decoy.
Okay, yeah, he didn't invent it.
Pat Pitt at 18.
Okay, that makes sense.
Michael Furtman at 17.
Well, no clue.
What did they do?
He wrote a book called On the Wings of Northwind, which brought attention to the prairie pothole region for hunting.
Huh.
Okay.
Probably should read that.
Then we got Bob Brister.
Yep.
Bob Brister is a shooting editor for Field and Stream from 72 to 2000 and is best known as a shotgunner.
Yeah.
He wrote Shotgunning the Art and Science.
What's he do, Corey? Like
shooter.
Just all right.
Yeah,
then,
that's it.
Dr. Harry Walsh wrote The Outlaw Gunner. Then Tom Roster.
What number are we on?
We're on number 14, Tom Roster. Number 15, James Ford Bell. James Ford Bell, which also invented Cheerios, founded Delta Waterfowl.
Really?
Congratulations to him. Way to go.
But that family's hurting.
Number 12, Joseph Knapp is one of the founding fathers of Ducks Unlimited. Then number 11, Chick Major.
Correct.
Then number 10, John Olin, which he is credited
from.
For...
Okay, please tell me you didn't say John Bolin from Bolin Collin Strings.
No, Olin. O-L-I-N.
Now is that the Olin family, like Winchester?
Yeah. So he did his father's Western Cartridge Company, which
John Bolin and the Ivory Meat Cutter one in Burlington.
I was gonna say
Winchester.
Olin is like the umbrella, I think, over like Winchester ammunition and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then so he was John Olin was number 10. Number 9, we did into the top 10. Number 9 is Bill Hornaday.
From Hornady ammunition?
Ammo?
Correct. Yeah. Passionate hunter and taxidermist. Became
the hell would he be in the top?
I would think he'd be in a more big game than
they don't make
shooting.
Yeah, he was. However, the access of market waterfowl hunting, blah blah blah. We can question him in a minute. Then number 8, Jack Miner.
Okay. Yeah.
Can get behind that.
Number 7, John Browning for the invention of the Humpback A5. Then number 6, Fred Kimball, which was the first inventor of a choke for your shotgun.
Okay.
Then Elmer, number 5 is Elmer Crowell.
Probably Crowell, but whatever.
Maybe Crowell.
I don't know.
And
is
Corey's like, I have 20 people that I haven't heard their name get listed off yet.
He was one of the first people to start selling hand-carved decoys.
Okay.
Nash Buckingham.
Oh, God. Thank God he's in there.
Is number 4. Number 3 is Ding Darling, the inventor.
The federal guy.
Federal duck stamp.
What a name.
Yep.
Listen to Corey spitting facts over here.
Listen to this.
Historian of the game.
Number 2, Hazelton Seaman.
What? One more time?
Hazelton Seaman. Number 2.
Is he a decoy carver?
Sounds like a typical Saturday night.
Nope. He invented the sneak box.
Hazelton Seaman in a sneak box.
That's a smart man.
Yeah. And then Mike, I already told you this one, but Corey, number 1, Fred Allen.
Duck call maker.
The most influential person of waterfowl hunting, Allen Duck Caller Company in 1880 was opened.
Yeah, duck call maker.
First person to ever commercially sell a duck.
Correct. 100%.
So, Corey, before you start spitting off your names of who they missed, Teddy, who do you think they missed?
I would put Fred Zink on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And just a quick why. Look at the industry that I think Fred has started.
What do you mean?
Only in video production. No,
I thought you were
all.
questioning. I'm like, wait a minute. Zink needs to be on there 100%.
Right. No, Fred Zink, especially being inside the industry, changed the market for not only how decoys were made, carved, mass produced, and they were also shipped. Like Fred Zink is the reason why you get the decoys you get today in the mail. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They put Phil Robertson on there.
That's a name that I probably, if you asked me, he certainly wouldn't be in the first 10 people that I would guess. But to be honest, I think he should be higher.
Yeah, I would definitely. I would have Phil higher.
And the reason I would say that, look at the industry that he started and the exposure that he gave waterfowl hunting when Duck Dynasty came out.
Yeah,
right.
And that has nothing to do with like his call company.
No, the calls were way before that. Even
getting into Walmart. Were they the first duck calls in Walmart?
I think so.
I mean, huge just explosion of an industry, right? And
I'd probably put Will Primos on this list too.
I would too. Yeah, that's a good name. I think he should be on any list across the board. Whether it's big game, whether it's turkey hunting, everything.
I would say Phil Robertson's got to be higher. I would definitely put Phil higher on this list just based off of what he did for the industry and how he laid it out for years to come.
The commercialization of manufactured duck calls.
Would you put Corey? Yeah. Would you put the Haas or the Jordan family in this list?
I was going to say I would put Toxie Hayes on there, Will Primos on there. Phil Robinson needs to go higher.
Agreed.
I would 100% put Butch on there.
Yeah, Butch is a big miss.
Needs to be way up there.
He needs to be top.
Some of those guys, like it. I mean, I don't know who did this, whether it was outdoor or something or Field and Stream or whatever, but I understand some of them. But like the Hornaday, I mean, nothing due respect to them and their families. What I don't know anything about them, but like when you're talking about waterfowl, like you have to think just waterfowl in general. And Fred Zink, like without a doubt, Tim, yes, he's on there. Do I think he needs to be higher? Yes. No offense to Vanamore. I don't think he is in the top 25 all time.
I would say that he is just
created a monster up there in Missouri, and he is doing an unbelievable job, and he is making a name for himself over a long time. Mm-hmm. But is he top 25? I mean, did he like create something big? No. He has an unbelievable duck club, and he is a spokesman for a lot of big companies. Is he a Fred Zink? No.
No.
Fuck no.
Mm-mm.
Toxie, Will, Phil needs to go up higher. Warren Coco definitely needs to be on there.
Yeah, that's a good name.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be on there as well, in my opinion.
I do agree with some of these older guys after hearing what they did. Like, I didn't know the duck stamp guy. The number one guy, Fred.
I mean, another one is the Ward brothers.
That's a good one. If you're going to
get the decoy carving, I would put the Ward brothers in there.
That's who I was going to say, the Ward brothers.
You could go down this rabbit hole and talk about a lot of people overall, and there's a lot of people that I'm forgetting.
It makes sense though, and like we said, how far back do you go, right?
That's
like
the thing.
We're stretching back. Waterfowl hunting as a whole, you're talking into the 1800s, and
correct.
I would say the majority of our knowledge probably starts like in the 40s.
I mean, shit. What about the guy that invented the punt gun? I don't even know that guy's name, but someone had to invent the punt gun for market hunting.
Yeah,
and that was big.
So just to clarify, Bill Hornaday is credited with helping pass because he was an elected official and he helped pass the Migratory Bird Treating Act in Congress, and like he was obviously a big conservationist.
George Dunklin's another one.
Who's that, Corey?
I mean, he's the owner of Five Oaks, but I mean, he does a lot. I mean, his background. I mean, there's a shit ton of stuff for him that's just never ends. But
would you put him in there? Would you put Jimbo on there?
Jimbo in the top 25.
He's been in and around.
Because I mean, he's been around for a long time, and Jimbo knows his shit. He does a lot of stuff for the communities, and his knowledge, TV shows, now he's, kicking ass with Drake.
Yeah.
But yeah, then again, you look out and, go out west. I mean, Bill Saunders has been doing this forever, and he is one of my favorite longtime OG guys, still to this day. It's just, there's just a lot. I mean, you could go and forever. I mean, you could talk about people forever in this, topic.
I think if you're going to talk about, like, if you're going to use, like, historians, like, you should probably put, like, Teddy Roosevelt on there. I mean, he, like, created hunting licenses.
Well, correct. I mean,
and duck stamps.
Yeah, I mean, like,
right. But like, if you're gonna put,
go, right?
Right,
yeah.
But if you're gonna put all these guys from like way back in history, like,
who's the guy that invented waiters?
Or I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you could do all sorts of shit. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like Zink, like I said, Zink, Warren Coco, Will Primos, Toxie Hayes, those type of guys definitely need to be on there. Phil needs to be a higher ranked.
Well, what's the guy? What's the carver? Rick something. He carved all of Zink's decoys. I know Zink.
Ross?
Not Ross. It's
Johansson.
Johansson. Rick Johansson. I mean, he's the reason why you have a lot of decoys shaped the way that they are now today. He changed the game of carving decoys, and I mean, if you really wanted to go technically,
I mean, you can go another way too and say Buck Gardner. I mean, that dude, he has done a shit ton of stuff.
I would say Buck Gardner should be on this list.
I mean, Buck should be on it.
If Tim is on it, I think.
I mean, Buck.
I think
been
you're
around
Butch
for a long goddamn time.
Yeah. So I think this is a good place to end it, right? And here's a good transition too. So we're going to keep up because I think these are really good topics. And there's literally thousands of pages. Like, I went on that Duck Hunters Refuge page, which is kind of their general topics category. And the last page was like 9,708, right? There's literally thousands and thousands of pages of topics. So we're talking like millions of ideas, responses, and stuff like that. So a lot of good stuff and a lot of good like conversation pieces, right? Because we're on episode, what, Matt? Got to be getting close to 80. You're on mute.
Whoops. Yeah, this will be episode 80.
Okay, so we're on episode 80. We've talked a lot about contest calling. We've talked a lot about hunting. This is kind of going to be a good way, like a good flashback. It's a good conversation piece, right? The industry has changed. We get to discuss whether it's been for the better or not. So what I want our listeners to do, one, if you're in the contest, make sure you stay tuned next week to hear who made the cut. Two, for those of you that are listening, I want you to put some names and just a quick reason why, or where you would put them. Give us your opinion on where you think everybody should be at on this list. Again, we're not historians, but there's a lot of people on there whose names I've never heard, but it makes sense why they would be on that list. So we appreciate you guys tuning in every week. Make sure you guys are following us on all the above social media outlets. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and make sure you listen to another episode of The Hail Call.